Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Eric Maddox with us today. Eric is a special guy, to say the least. He was one of the guys that found Saddam Hussein back then. So he's now a public speaker and author, former special operations soldier. He was attached precisely to a task force special operation team in Tikrit. That was part of the Joint Special Operation Command responsible for tracking down the most wanted men in Iraq, being Saddam Hussein back then. During his 6 month tour with the task force team, Eric conducted over 300 interrogations and collected intelligence, which directly led to the capture of the main man himself. And nowadays, he has an approach that is called empathy based listening that we're going to talk about today. So, Eric, I'm glad to have you on the podcast today. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
I think you covered it, Charles. That's right. I was an interrogator. So you said special operations soldier. I was a soldier. I was on a Delta Force team. So they're the operators, right? They were the shooters and they needed information. I was their interrogator. I did about 300 interrogations while on this team and collected the intelligence which tracked down Saddam. Because of the way that I conducted my interrogations in 2003, I was asked by the Department of Defense, United States, to help them build a 30-person interrogation team focused around this communication process. You mentioned it. I call it empathy-based listening. I did that for 10 more years. I ended up doing 8 deployments, 2,700 interrogations. And for the last 11 years, I train business leaders on this communication process.
It's very interesting. And let's dive straight in the Saddam days. How was your deployment in Iraq? Was it traumatic? Was it insightful? What team building skill did you acquire there? Any stories for us?
I felt like it was insightful. I mean, I wasn't an effective interrogator. The history of U.S. military interrogations, we only gained cooperation. Our average was about 4%, which
Wow.
it's really hard. I mean, you can imagine, Charles, if you're a prisoner captured on a battlefield, why would you trust the enemy interrogator to reveal your only asset? You have one asset, that's your information. Why would you give it up? So it was a very difficult process, and it was really failed. And what I found is there's got to be a better way. And from that, I thought I was a good listener. I thought I listened as well as everybody else. I come to realize there's so many things we miss, and there's reasons we miss it, and there's ways to ask better questions. So I created this process, and it took us from 4% cooperation of prisoners to 65% cooperation of prisoners. So I think the traumatic part was we had a really difficult mission. We had to find Saddam. So it was a lot of struggles. It was very difficult to find him. We didn't actually find him until my last day on the tour. So it was the entire thing, but it was very formative. It changed the way I approached interrogations. It's changed the way the United States military approached tracking down high value targets. And then it sort of planted the seeds of what I wanted to do in the future, which was focus on this communication process to help people build trust in relationships.
Let's start with that prisoner. Yeah, my approach would be to check where his interests are, right? Like probably getting out of that prison or finding comfort in that prison, having privileges in that prison, talking about his family, right? His legacy, probably his beliefs, his identity directly hit on these points here, like fully be aligned on these points. Is that what you mean by empathy? Because me having an empathy for a terrorist, someone that chops heads for fun, very hard to do, right? So I wouldn't go empathy, but I would definitely, if I would want to extract information from that person, um, I would row in the same direction as they would. What do you have to say about that?
So when you listed these variables of, things that matter to them, better treatment in the prison, their family, all those, I don't remember them all, but when you listed those, maybe that is what's on their front of mind. Where we often make mistakes is we'll go into a conversation and we'll think, you know what, I'm gonna do this process. I suspect this person wants to, get released early, hide their identity. Maybe they want some money. That's all a problem because those are my assumptions. And when we make any assumptions, when we go listen to somebody, when they speak to us, we're going to be distracted by what I call our biases, our preconceived notions. So it's the absent. Maybe you're right. Maybe all those things you listed do matter, but we don't know. They're dying to tell you. Everybody's dying to tell you what it means to be them, but there's a lack of trust. They don't feel like, hey, I can tell this interrogator how I feel, what's important. So when they speak, they drop what I call breadcrumbs, little words, terms, phrases, and it's not their perspective. It's not. It's not the way they see the situation, but they are tests. They're test words to see, are you going to guess what it means to be me? Or are you going to discover? And so, with the absence of assumptions and really other distractions, what you want to have is pure curiosity. And I challenge anybody who's listening to this call, think about the questions we ask on a daily basis. Are they pure curiosity or their assumptions, beliefs, agendas, all these things that get in the way? And what I realize with my prisoners is they want you not to bring your agenda, your goals, your preconceived notions. You got to prove to them, I'm seeking to understand you, purely objective.
Interesting. So, how would you actually start your approach? Because I would guess there would already be data on these folks, right? About their incentives, their beliefs. I would still come in with an open mind, of course, because that would jeopardize the full process if I would come with judgment, right? Which is like the opposite of what you need to do to get someone to cooperate. So, how would you start, and how would you remove the bias from the fact that they potentially know why you're here, which is to extract information from them, right? Like, how would you actually do that?
So it's a really good point. Great question. Um, Maybe there's a ton of data, right? But that data can be a hindrance. But what can't be a hindrance, because it's not a matter of possible, there's an almost guarantee. So if something's a guarantee, then it's not a possibility, it's a guarantee. It's a guarantee the prisoner knows you're trying to extract information, right? So I can't get away from that bias, but it is a hindrance with my prisoners. It's actually their distraction. So what I actually want to do is I want to be who they think I'm going to be. I want to come into this and be the person who's trying to extract information. I might even be the person who looks like I dislike them. I have a negative connotation. It really scares somebody when you come into a meeting and they're different than what they really are certain you're going to be. So, for instance, people often, I ask them, I say, well, what would be the first thing you would do with a prisoner? And they would say, well, I'd ask them if they want a cigarette or a cup of tea. And I would explain to them, I know what you're going through and I'm here to help. Good luck with that. Because they're going to look at you and go, not only do you not get me, I don't trust you. And now I know I don't trust you. Right. So my initial first statement, it's very direct and almost negative. Right. Why? I want them to have a perception of me. And then I want them to see their behaviors, me picking up those breadcrumbs, me discovering has changed my mindset of what I thought my world was in order that they feel very strongly that they're influencing me. We could use the word
Control.
manipulation, control. All, I want to give them control so that I gain the influence.
I love that. That's a great tactic to obtain information from there. And okay, what would first? Did you speak the language like when you came in there? So how did you had a translator with you? Did you?
Of course, I don't
Okay, and
speak
what?
Arabic.
How did the translator? What's the translator's role into that to not jeopardize your full work?
So it's a struggle, right? I don't know anybody on this call that's used a translator, right? And you're at the mercy of the abilities of the translator. So the way I approached it was, for the most part, I mean, I know we see movies where the translator, can we trust them? Are they going to be on the other enemy side? Listen, all of our translators were Shia. Saddam was Sunni. They were Iraqi Shia. They not only did they not like, I mean, they hated Saddam, right? So I almost had to worry about the biases, the negativity. But I'd worked with these translators enough that I told them, I said, do your best. And I also had to deal with this thing. Most of my, all of my translators, their Arabic dialect, their Arabic was way better than their English. Now, they spoke very good English. So what I tried to do is I didn't want a word for word translation from my translators. So when I would speak, I would use a lot of slang. Um, I'm from Oklahoma, so we come natural by that in the state of Oklahoma. But I didn't want my translators to be able to do a word for it. I needed them to put it in their language. And really, I didn't care what they said. I could hear whatever the prisoner would say to the translator. When I received the translation, I can still tell the words that are the test words, right? And I'm going to give you a quick example. But pretty much when you sit in front of a prisoner, one of the things they're going to say, they're going to sit there and they're going to look innocent because they're not in uniform. It's not like we know they're guilty. We captured a bunch of innocent people. So plausible deniability, they could come in and go, you, you got the wrong guy. But their opening statement would oftentimes be, I shouldn't be here. I, I'm not like these other prisoners, right? You can imagine many interrogators would go, oh, no, no, no. I have the data. I'm telling you, I know exactly who you are. You've done a lot of these things. I'm here to help you, but don't tell me you shouldn't be here. Matter of fact, you're one of the worst we've had, right? That's going at him. Curiosity. I would simply, I'd go, what makes you different than anybody else? There's no knowledge there. I'm not bringing my data. And did you notice, like, he's catching me off? I'm like, wait, how, how are you different than anybody else? Right? There's nothing there that shows I'm smart, I'm wise, I'm all knowing. It is giving them control. They can, now, I'm not saying they're going to tell me the truth, but I need them to see me becoming vulnerable to give them control.
And what you give someone that is dangerous so much control, how do you make sure that they don't actually manipulate you and bring you into their muddy waters?
Can you give me an example, like what would be a muddy water of a prisoner?
Well, just manipulate you, right? And I mean, it's hard to manipulate a prison guard, but some people have successfully done it. Um, and or a special ops like you, right? You're trained mentally to defend yourself, but yeah, just like bring you on a path that's totally wrong, waste your time, blur your data, and just like have you believe with that quote unquote empathy that they're really not guilty.
So, bottom line is, if you're captured in this war zone, you may not be guilty of killing American soldiers. You may not be guilty of knowing where Saddam is. But by the nature that you live there, you know something. You're not living in a box. So my prisoners, if they're being honest, which they don't have to be, they're going to say, I have no idea where Saddam is. I mean, there's a bunch of bad guys here. Well, what do you know about, right? Like, if they go, I don't know anything. Well, it's just hard to believe. Like, they're going to want to prove that they have some knowledge, that they're giving you what they do have, right? So for me, when people are like, "How do you know somebody's lying?" I'm like, "That's actually pretty easy." And it doesn't do me any good if somebody's lying. Like, I can't look at a prisoner and go, "You lied to me, so I'm keeping you." Like, so what? They lied to you. They're supposed to lie to you. Why wouldn't they? Right? But where I have to get the decision point is when they give me the data they have of value, I've got to get them something they need. So when a prisoner realizes I am trying to understand you, I don't like you, we don't have to be buddies, but I'm trying to figure it out. Usually the prisoner's like, what you really don't get, Mr. Interrogator, and they might tell me something. They're like, I actually don't like this insurgency. I got recruited in this sucker, and I would love to take you to my command, the guy that made me join, right? But Mr. Interrogator, here's the problem. If I take you to that guy, you just got me. Everyone will know it was me. Like, now that really puts me in trouble. And I might say something very simple like, "Well, what do you want to do?" Like, that's giving them total control. And oftentimes you'll see a prisoner go, all right, here's what I would do. They say, listen, if I took you to a couple other people that I don't like, they're in the insurgency, they're nobody, but they know exactly where my commander is. Can you go capture them? And then when you capture them, would your team be willing, if I took you, but capture them, but then I'll take you to the commander. But if you do it right after you capture these people, they'll act, the world, this city, this town, they'll think they did it. They won't know it's me. Great. Like, I don't know what the solution's going to be, but I need them to be creative with the solution, right? They are building equity to gain what they really need, which, number one, most of them need their identity to not come out. They've been helpful. They've got to get out of this prison sooner than later. And then main thing they need is, if they get released for doing a bunch of, they were captured for being a fighter, when they get released, they need to make sure we're not coming after them. Right. And so they'll start negotiating in their own mind, going, what would it take to get off the bad guy list of the Americans? What would it take? I don't know. Like, people are like, how'd you find Saddam? I'm like, I didn't find Saddam. These prisoners took me over 5 months, 300 prisoners. They took, I didn't know where Saddam was. I didn't know Tikrit. They took me. So it's
It's
almost
also
like an empowering communication process.
yeah, I love that. What I love less though, talking about like ethics and real empathy, is like taking someone that is presumably innocent away from their family, right? Like as providers. So, under what base did you guys took these people in? Because if you would do that to me, well, first I would flee a war zone if I would grow up in a war zone, right? Like that would be my first move. Easy, rather easier said than done, right? But I would do that. But second, if I would be captured and I would be innocent, I would be pretty pissed, right? So, one, what's the ethics of that? And yeah, second, what would you do if you would have been on the other side of the chair?
I mean, ethically, I don't know what to say. Like, we're in a war zone. I don't think the United States forces ever went and deliberately captured completely innocent people. But if you look at modern warfare, it is insurgencies. I mean, these are normal people who have joined this fighting element. They wear the same clothes as everybody else. They have day jobs, right? Like, it's just a problem because they blend in. They look like, talk like, they're everything with the normal society. It's going to happen. Now, my goal was, if I really got just a completely innocent person, I got him out of that prison within 24 hours. But I will say, you're innocent. I'm getting you out of here. But you're going to tell me what you know about these non innocent people that interact in your world. I mean, you're just going to. I'm sorry you got uh, captured. Ethically, I don't know where you want to put that on the scale. We're at war. We had the job to do. I am going to get you out of here. I'm going to protect you. But you're not going to come here and go, I'm innocent, and I'm not going to tell you information that will be helpful to you.
And your method is way more humane, I would guess, vs your peers at Guantanamo Bay, right?
I think it is. That's a subjective question. I believe it is, but you know, we want to talk about the humanity of war. Good luck on that. Like, I mean, I signed up for it. I know what I was getting into. Soldiers know what they're getting into. Leaders who go to war know what they're getting into. Like, it's war. What I don't. I hate to be negative. Like, how
You're
much
rational.
Where does the measurement of humanity even come in?
Yeah, there's none. Like war is revolving to your human nature, right? And it's really primal. It's supposed to be, right? It's still like on the grounds of winning something and the other party losing, right? Like there's no win-win. So, but yeah, when we get to blows, we get to blows. There's no other solutions. Technically, we tried everything before that. You said you had a 65% um, accuracy rate, like when it came to getting information out of these people. Do you feel that you could also internally, did you had a compass to know if that person was guilty or not, and did you have data to prove that you were right on your guess?
Um, so the 65%, just so I'm clear, 65% of the prisoners I spoke with, I interrogated, provided useful intelligence for my forces. It's not I proved 65% were guilty or innocent. That was not the statistic. It was like 65% of cooperation where the prisoner willingly, knowingly provided me information. Does that make sense versus
Yes, yes. But let's say that I would be lying to you and I would hide something. Do you have an internal compass right now because you have so much experience to actually be right or wrong about if I'm a lying piece of shit or not?
well, I would never call somebody that because I would not blame somebody for lying, right? So I don't view them as any piece of anything. Somebody wants to lie, somebody's going to lie, right? So I just want to make sure you're not putting words because I don't feel that way. My compass, so it's very difficult. If I don't work with a unit that takes my information and then goes and tries to capture the next bad guy, how would I know if this person is giving me accurate information? I think I can tell when prisoners are lying and not lying. So, what I try to measure is, does the prisoner believe what they're telling me? Right? If somebody
Interesting.
says right now, where is your best friend that lives in California? Like, where are they exact? I'm like, their house. It was work day. I don't think they take the third off. I think they're going to be at their office. I think I'm telling you the truth. So but the only way I can know is when we go to the house if the bad person's there. Now I will say there are often times where the bad person isn't. Maybe their brother is. And I talked to the brother and they're like, yeah, they were here last night. They left this morning. If I believe that person's telling me the truth, it was like my prisoner meant well. The bad guy was there, they left. It happens all the time. That's the only compass you can have, or that
Right.
I can have.
And watching police footage when someone gets arrested, they revolve to lying like 80-90% of the time just because they're very nervous. Right. Was that also your experience? And is your best way to not make them nervous, to make them calm, is to be empathetic, friendly, and ask them open-minded question? Or is the cigarette still useful here?
So there's a difference in what I believe being friendly. I don't think being friendly matters. So I want to make sure we're clear. I don't feel the need to be sympathetic. I need to be empathetic. And can I ask you, Charles? I'm going to put you on the spot. When you think of the word empathy, what does that mean to you?
I had the definition of sympathetic and empathetic. Sympathetic is sounding, um, like you understand the other party, and empathetic is really understanding their feelings while maintaining some boundaries, I think.
Well, let me give you my definition, okay? Sympathetic is having an emotional element, um, concern, passion, care. Care. People are always like, well, if you really want to be a good listener, you got to care about them. It helps. I I've found, excuse me one second. Excuse me. They're literally in the seat of the car. Oh, oh, here they
Who?
are. Sorry, Charles. Okay. So sympathetic is the compassion, the care, right? It's an emotional element. Empathy is pure seeking to understand somebody else's perspective. Now, you
Okay.
notice I use the word seeking to understand because many times what I thought you were going to say when people say empathy, it says, Eric, it's putting yourself in their shoes, it's understanding their perspective. We'll never understand purely a person's perspective. We will not. It does not happen, right? Seeking to understand, doing the best we can, which means objectivity. Sympathy brings in an emotion, empathy has no emotions.
Very good. Thanks for the clarification. Yeah. I mean, it may be possible one day through Neuralink, right? Like if you connect your brain to someone else's brain directly and get the same data output, but not for now. It's a very complex thing, especially to put your own baggage aside, right? Like your own emotions and all of that. Is just fascinating to talk to because you've been put in such a specific scenario and apparently you were successful, right? Like
Thank you.
in catching Saddam, I was studying Saddam's end of life and how he got caught probably 2 to 3 weeks ago, not even knowing you would be on this podcast. Tell me about that, man. Saddam was quite the psychopath, apparently. How did you study this character? What was your motivation, your own internal motivation to catch him, and how did you got to him?
Um, I hate to take this without the rah rah. Um, I was in the military and they were looking for him. I didn't have
But
anything.
you had data on what this guy did,
Yes.
and so that must have sometimes been like, yeah, I need to catch this guy, even a rational guy like you. But what I'm mostly interested in is how you got to him. Was there like a specific prisoner that gave you like 80% of the data? How did you get to that data? Was it a very hard task because bin Laden was in escape mode for what, 20 years? Saddam didn't had that same luxury, but he was still pretty well hidden. I believe he was under his house or something. So if you could recall these events and tell the audience of how it was, must have been exciting as well to help catch the man himself.
It was very exciting. He was the most wanted man in the world. It was the military. He was the ace of spades, right? And I was in the military. That was an important mission for them. So it was very exciting. Personally, Saddam, whatever. I will tell you, it wasn't the research on Saddam Hussein that helped me generate the path to track him down, right? What I needed to figure out was who knows where to take us, right? Like who knew? So when I showed up in Tikrit, Iraq, really the United States military, we didn't know where he was. Now, I will tell you, there was a preconceived notion he did not stay in his hometown was 20,000 people. We had 15,000 soldiers in this little bitty town. The idea was that he's either fled to Syria and is kind of hiding there, maybe possibly Aleppo, or that he was in Baghdad, right? I think metro, big area. I think at the time there were probably 8 million people, and that he could just hide anywhere, and it was this sea of people, right? They really didn't think he was into Crete. So my first step was to figure out what do we know? And I'm talking about my military. Like, what do we know? It was very clear to me we just didn't. And that allowed me to go, you know what? Clean slate. Because you're telling me he's not in this town of Tikrit, but you don't know even generally where he is. So let's not assume anything. Remember, I don't want to assume. So then I start talking to prisoners. And when I was able to gain the cooperation, really what I'm trying to do is say, okay, here's this insurgency. Is there leadership? I mean, is there a source of motivation? Is there any sort of structure, and does it go upward? Through these prisoners, I started to realize, wow, there's a lot of insurgent fighters, but it funnels really quickly to the chain of command. And I realized at the top of this chain of command, I didn't know it was Saddam, but I knew it was one bodyguard. His name was Muhammad Ibrahim. So I said, okay, let's make the assumption this bodyguard has the power of Saddam Hussein. So as I'm talking to prisoners, I'm keeping an eye out, and they started to reveal the reverence, the power of this bodyguard. And I'm like, yeah, this is a bodyguard. It's not a luxury job. Like he shouldn't have this much authority. So I started to kind of make the leap. Okay, maybe he does know where Saddam is. But the big kicker for me, like I'm not lazy, but I like to go to the easiest path to success. Even though I was succeeding at 65%, I started to notice those who were fully dedicated into the insurgency, they were really difficult to gain cooperation. They didn't want to be released. They didn't want free, like they wanted to stay loyal to the cause. So I could kind of get some cooperation. But what I also noticed, these people, they needed facilitators. What we call that or people that would give them a safe house, some people that would provide them transportation, people that would run their businesses so they could have a source of revenue, right? All these facilitators were not loyal to the cause. They were very participatory, but they weren't loyal, right? When we came across the secondary, not straight up chain of command, but the secondary people, I that was the sweet spot because they would be like, I'm doing this. It's not my heart. And my problem, their problem is, yeah, I built this car, this vehicle, and it's gonna blow up, and I may have killed some of you all. So I don't know if you're ever gonna trust me, Mr. Interrogator, but this is not my passion. Theirs were the ones that really would like, hey, you know what? I think you're going to let me out of here. I want out of here. I don't want to be known as the person that helped. But here's what I know because I need you to get to the top. I need you to take out Saddam. I need you to take out this bodyguard so that I can go back to a normal life. Right. So we think about, Charles, three groups of people, those in the chain of command who are loyal, those secondary facilitators, and then the third massive group of people are just innocent civilians who happen to live in this war zone. They didn't do me a ton of good. This chain of command was really difficult, but these secondary participants, they took us to the top. And basically, on December 1st, so Saddam's captured December 13th, 2003. On December 1st, we captured the driver of the bodyguard. And the driver of the bodyguard busted wide open. He goes, here's the way it works. My bodyguard, the guy I drive around, he has 5 safe houses. Here's all 5. He's got 2 main people that help him out, and he's got 1 deputy. And so for me, we had over 2,000 names on our link diagram of this insurgency. It came down to about 10 people. So then it was like, sweet. For the next 13 days, we're going after these people. And for the next 13 days, we started capturing them, bringing them in. And the cool thing is, they were also facilitators. And even when we captured the bodyguard, the top guy,
Why was Bin Laden so hard to catch in comparison? Was he just smarter?
man, I think my answer would be subjective, not objective. I think we approached the mission wrong. I mean, we gave that to the CIA. CIA is really great about infiltrating really populated communities. We're trying to penetrate the mountains of Waziristan, that region in between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Like, that's not their jam. They they don't they don't know how to do that. They had the mission. It's not their mission. And then by the time we realize like they're going to struggle, it's not that they're not good. It's just they don't have experience at that mission. It was so many years later, and I'm going to tell you the biggest problem with tracking down a high value target is you put a $25 million US dollar reward for somebody. Everyone comes in is like, I think I know where he is. Hey, I think I know. You have
Top data.
thousands of leads, and you can't get through all these different leads. So somewhere in there is somebody who probably is accurate, but it's flooded with all these inaccurate leads, and to weed through those is almost impossible.
Do you think AI could help with that? Like so many data, because in AI, there's like this saying, bad data in, bad data out. Nowadays, there's Palantir, there's Anduril that are gathering all these pieces of data. Do we still need human minds into it, or can AI solve most of that in the future warfare?
So with the current state of AI, and again, maybe there's
Yep.
stuff in the pipeline that I'm not aware of with AI, right? But the current state of I don't think AI is effective at knowing how to put a rating on data. They say they can put a rating on data. I don't think it's an effective rating. Like, as I was getting closer, I'm on this Delta Force team. We're getting closer. Well, there's like 8 of us that believe this is true. So if you put Chat GPT or whatever the coolest AI is, they're going to gather all this data and they're going to go, well, they're wrong because all these people are saying Saddam is in Baghdad. Well, why would they say Saddam's in Baghdad? It's not because they're lying. They don't want to be inaccurate. Where are the sources where we're gathering information? We were able to gather more information from Baghdad because it had a higher population. So you have a higher data set. You have a limited data set with biases that said we were wrong. You put that into AI and they're like, you guys are wrong. Now, once we capture him, hopefully AI would then go, wait a second, where do we mess this up? But I mean, AI doesn't know how to do pure analysis yet. They're trying to get there. They're not there yet.
Why did you choose the interrogation path vs your peers that chose the jumping parachutes and catching the bad guys physically path?
Whoa. Say that one more time.
Yeah, you were special force, right? Your peers, they were the guys like on the battlefield and so forth doing the missions. You were mostly interrogating. Why did you choose that path?
So when I first joined the army, the military, I was an infantry guy, right? And I was a paratrooper at a unit in the United States called the 82nd Airborne Division, right? Pretty good unit. When my enlistment was running out, I discovered that the military had this foreign language program. So I had zero intention, desire to be an interrogator. I wanted to learn a foreign language, but there's only a couple of jobs you can get, and one of them was being an interrogator. So this was 1997. There were no wars, like the most peaceful time in world history. So I I was like, oh, I want to learn a language. Actually, I want to learn Chinese Mandarin. And they said, well, you want to be an interrogator? And I'm like, no, it sounds terrible. And they said, you'll never do it. We'll just use you as a translator. You'll never do an interrogation. I said, great, sign me up. So I spent 16 months submersion, I'm sorry, immersion training, not submersion, immersion training, Chinese Mandarin. And it's like 8 weeks of interrogation training, right? And these are the old techniques. The old techniques don't work. And thank goodness, because I almost
Waterboarding.
no, they don't teach us. See,
Just
there's
kidding.
no. I appreciate that. I think it's a good point. People were waterboarded, right? Nowhere in doctrine or policy do they teach waterboarding. It
Yeah,
was
of
a
course.
technique of torture, And at some point, some people were like, hey, that's torture. Maybe that'll gain cooperation. Now, I think the most important point is that why on earth would we be willing to break the law, do these waterboardings, if we had these effective interrogation techniques? The techniques weren't effective. So now you have this failed mission of interrogation process, what they taught me. And when I went through these 8 weeks, I was like, well, first of all, I almost failed. They were like, you're not really good at this. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of stupid. I don't think that would work. I think that's really stupid. And I didn't say that, but I was like, yeah, I'm terrible at something I don't believe in. So I didn't care. I barely passed the interrogation course because I was going to be a translator of Chinese Mandarin for the United States military. Well, then you go to war, 9/11 happens, we go to Afghanistan, and then we go to Iraq, and they said, hey, we don't care what language you speak if you're an interrogator. And this unit, Delta Force, who's going after Saddam, said, we need an interrogator who's former infantry. And I had graduated this school called Ranger School. It's really hard Army school. And they
Very
said,
high
oh,
school.
so because of that unique background, I was placed on this team. I'd never done an interrogation, and I actually thought they were stupid. So I was kind of starting from a place of like, man, I'm glad you guys picked me. I don't know how to do this.
But that's always like the greatest in each field. They have high openness, but also they are low on agreeability, right? Like that's for entrepreneurial people. That's probably why you ended up a speaker nowadays. Um, which leads to my next question, right? Because we have 12 minutes left. How was the transition for you? Was it hard coming back to the US? You've seen some traumatic shit as well over the years. How did you adapt it to that?
I think there was definitely a transition, right? Like when you do 8 deployments, so I did 8 deployments in 10 years. Now, my
That's a lot.
deployments aren't a year, mine are 6 months, right? So some people do a year, some people do nine. Mine were 6 month deployments. It's your life, right? And that settings your life. So coming back to the normal world of paying bills and making decisions at a grocery store and just the life, it was quite the transition. I didn't know I was going to be a speaker. I I didn't even know they had keynote speakers. I truly I did not know people were paid to give presentations. And it was 2012. I'm in Afghanistan, and some organization was like, "Hey, why don't you tell your story, Saddam?" And I said, "Hey, when I get home, sure." And they said, "We'll pay you." I'm like, "Really?" They said, "Yeah, we'll pay you a lot of money." I'm like, "Are you messing with me? You
It's
pay
a
me?"
heck of a story.
Well, I thought it was a cool story, but I didn't know people paid for it. So
Hell yeah.
I tell this story, and somebody at the group in the meeting was like, they booked speeches for speakers. And they came up to me, they're like, how many of these do you want to do in a year? And I asked, I said,
Ooh.
are you gonna keep paying me? So it started there, but where I really felt the transition is what you need to realize when you start speaking is that ultimately nobody cares the cool thing you did. They don't. They want to know of the cool thing you learned. How does it apply to our life today?
Yeah.
How do we take this and make ourselves better today? The story gets you in the gets them in the seats, but they need to know how do I. And so for me, for now, the last 13 years, my focus is giving maximum value to each participant at that moment. I want them running out that door going, I'm going to take this empathy based listening. I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to be a better listener. I'm going to be a leader, and we're going to turn that into our culture. That's why I'm still able to do it today.
And your military background is really good for discipline, right? Which is essential in business, being organized, teamwork as well, right? And yeah, like resilience and grit as well. So, been doing that for the past 2 decades now. How has your business grown since then?
So yeah, I started my own business in 2014, right? So the first speech was 2012. And I was like, yeah, let's see. And then 2014, I'm like, I'm getting so many of these opportunities. Let's take this off. Let's go. Right. So I left the Defense Intelligence Agency, and my average year over year growth has been 18% every single, or the average over those years, um, which is great, right? And I left college. I graduated from the University of Oklahoma. A month later, I signed up for the Army. I didn't know anything about business. I had no idea. So you really, for me, it was like, hey, every time you give a speech, you can learn what this industry does, what their questions are. So my speeches in 2014, 2012, 2014, they're different because I didn't know what the true value that the audience wants. So for me, it was like figure out what they want, what their industry does. And when you do that, you become a student, right? Like you're learning about all these different companies and where your value add is, and how to be a speaker and how to engage. And it's great. It's a fun journey, and I'm still on it.
Some of your techniques, do they apply to my podcasting world? How can I get better at asking questions with your empathy based listening method?
My recommendation, I think you do it quite well, right? But my recommendation is you probably have a plan, a strategy for your interviews. And I think it's very good to be prepared. But whatever the guy said, the person, guy or girl says, go off of that, maneuver off of that, because your audience, they know you. They like you. That's why they're listening. Like you're the guy, but I'm the new thing, right? So I'm the one that is going to intrigue the audience. They want to see you be you, but you be you in my world. So you're actually more important than me, I believe, but you have to just enter this weird world of interrogator, empathy based listener. And the better you can do that, the more that, they're going to like me because they like you. And so they like you talking about me, but they really just like you.
Do people feel sometimes intimidated when you ask them question, knowing your background, even though you do use your empathy based method? Are they stuck with the picture that they have of Eric?
Well, they're stuck with that until they get to know me, hopefully. But yeah, I freak people out and I don't like it. Like, it's very, it's not disappointing. It's just something you deal with every time you meet somebody. They're like, because I kind of want to listen. So to listen, I have to stare. I'm deaf in this ear. So I have to really stare because I'm kind of reading their lips. And they're like, man, why are you doing that? I'm like, I'm not. I just trying to listen to what you're
Yeah, that's
saying.
funny.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on what's happening currently into the world, geopolitically wise? And would you ever think of coming back in that world and consulting for the U.S. military?
Probably not. I believe in capitalism. I believe in the freedom. I believe that this country, the United States, was built on small business and entrepreneurs and the freedom for people to go create value to make money. And I love it. I love that people say, thank you for your service. Wow, your job was so much more important than what I do. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. We only have a military so that you can do what you do. Don't forget your taxpayer money is the reason we have this, right? So we come up on the 4th of July and then we have Veterans Day. And I'm very grateful for the appreciation, the patriotism. This country was built by small businesses and entrepreneurs. And I'm more excited about the world of opening up opportunities for anybody who wants to give it a go, right? Anybody who's like, I'm going to bust my tail, I'm going to build a team, and I got a good idea, and I'm going to work to achieve that. I think that's what the vision, it's what the idea of America is. We as the military have a responsibility to keep it that way, right? Sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes we don't. But quite honestly, it's all great. Military's great. I'm tired. It's like good. This is what runs this country.
Fully agree. I believe the greatest deterrent strategy, the greatest national security strategy is actually trading and capitalism. If you trade with other countries, you both win, right? It's very much win-win. The second deterrent, in my opinion, would be tourism, right? Like if you send people of your country to that other country and vice versa, and why would we nuke each other, right? So very much in agreement with that. Any thoughts on this?
No, none.
Okay. I'm gonna ask my next and last question, or maybe not. That I may have another one just before we leave. But you studied Chinese, right? What are your thoughts on the tariffs? Do you think that's mostly good for the U.S. or is it detrimental over the long run?
I have my opinion. I don't give a flip. We're gonna figure it out. Honestly, we're resilient. We're Americans. We're business leaders. You want to slap tariffs on the people we trade with? Yeah, it's going to be a pain in the neck. You want to remove the tariffs on people? Yeah, then it's going to create a possible imbalance, right? I mean, the tariffs have its pros and cons, and everybody has their perspective. And I don't disagree that everybody who has their perspective has a reason that hopefully they believe it is good for the country and good for the relationships, whatever. Right. I mean, I go into missions and it was like, well, you have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. And I'm like, cool. I can't make the rules. I'm going to play by them. We're going to win by them. Right. So
I love that.
right? That's what an entrepreneur does. It's like, yeah, we have hurdles. Some we can remove, some we can't. You can't remove a hurdle, you got to get through it.
I love that. What's next for you, Eric? What are your goals for this year?
I'm just growing my business. Like my goal is I know the value of what I present. I know it builds cultures. I know it builds relationships. It builds partnerships. I'm looking for every new word, new question, new discovery that is going to enhance this, right? So a lot of people spread themselves, which is great. Some people can do that. I can't multitask, right? Like I get obsessed with something. I'm obsessed with this communication process, and I'm always trying to figure out how do we make this build even stronger partnerships? How do we make it even better? Every speech I give, it's like, wait, what could I have done better? And it allows me to self-critique, self-evaluate, and it lets me always look at the mountain I'm climbing and going, I'm not at the top. I don't even see the top, but we're going to take one step and one step. So I found my mountain. And I'm just trying to climb up it.
Love that. Where can people find out more about you, Eric?
Just hit me up. I'm at eric@ericmaddox.com. Like, you found me. How'd you find me? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I found out about you via cold email, so via LinkedIn. So that's what I do. You're good interrogator. I'm good at finding people's contacts and get them to accept podcast invite.
You track people
Similar
down, man.
branch.
You could go after high value targets.
Yeah, yeah. There could even be a bad version of me, right? In which I would use these skills for wrong. A lot of hackers use these skills to for social engineering. I think it's always good to stand on the right lane. But thanks for that, Eric. Thank you for your time today. That was Eric Maddox and Charles Cormier for another.